Hi, and welcome aboard today. We are at Amache National Historic Site, located just outside of Granada, Colorado, which is a very small town located in southeast Colorado, about 15 minutes or so from the Kansas border. And if you're keeping track at home or a first-time viewer to this channel, this is stop number 19 in our attempt to visit all 433 national parks in the United States. All right, so Amache, if you're not familiar with it, essentially the National Park Service explains that it was also known as the Granada Relocation Center, and this was one of 10 incarceration sites established by the War Relocation Authority during World War II to unjustly incarcerate Japanese Americans, and that over 10,000 people that were mostly U.S. citizens were incarcerated at Amache from 1942 to 1945. Now, from a historical perspective, if you think about it, this was the aftermath of the bombing of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 to create civilian exclusion zones along the West Coast, and these exclusion zones only applied to people of Japanese descent. They were eventually forcibly removed or relocated to, they would eventually end up in one of these camps. All right, Amache was the third national park that I stopped at on this day. I had started out at Bent's Old Fort outside of La Junta, and then went to the Sand Creek Massacre Historic Site outside of Eads. And then I drove the hour or so down Colorado 385, which they affectionately call the High Plains Highway, to Amache. And if you are interested in seeing the visit to Bent's Old Fort or Sand Creek, I'll put them up in the right-hand corner for you. Now, Amache is one of the newer national park units, and it was just established on February 15th, 2024. And so I wasn't really sure what to expect from the visit. On the National Park Service website, they call it a park in progress. They've got a lot of plans for the site. Part of the site is located out where the camp was at, which is where we're currently at. They have this walking path trail that leads in a circle that has a lot of information. They have the Amache Honor Roll monument right there, and some of the flags, Colorado, United States, various ones like that. And so they've got this nice little park area, and then you leave and you can actually drive into what's left of the campground. There's not much. Honestly, once you get in here, it's a lot of dirt roads, a lot of overgrown grass and trees and those type of things. Now, for this tour around Amache, there is a self-guided driving tour you can do. That's got the audio tour, leads visitors to 11 points of interest at the historical site. I did not do that. I should have maybe done that. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, this was the site where the Amache camp was at. And then the second part, though, is when you go into the actual town of Granada, they have a historical museum, which is absolutely fascinating. And there's just a lot of information in there. And so I think if I had to do it again, I would probably have gone to the museum first and then have gone out to the site just to get a little bit more of the historical context. But I definitely recommend visiting the museum while you're there. They do have park rangers that work in there, and they've just got all kinds of artifacts and different historical information with, in regards to Japanese Americans in their time during this part of history. As you can see, it's just a lot of driving out there on the site. It is going to come up to some of the historical buildings, though, that they've got. It's home to the reconstructed barracks, historical recreation hall, historical water tower, and a reconstructed guard tower. Now, the barracks and recreation hall and those type of things, you can only go in them while the park staff is there. So you just kind of stay on the outside and take pictures of it. And they do have some ranger-led tours and stuff like that. There is also a cemetery that is on the grounds. It's kind of farther. It's about a mile back off the grounds. I've got a little bit of video of it. It's kind of fascinating. It's very peaceful. It's also kind of somber as well, too. And here's one of the buildings that are there. As far as other people out there, this was about it. There was only like 1 or 2 other cars that I saw the entire time I was out there. I was probably out there for about 45 minutes to an hour. And now once I did get to the historical museum, there was a lot of people actually there. There's probably about 10 people or so. And here's kind of where you make that turn. You can see the water tower, the barracks, the guard tower, and those type of things. They were pretty fascinating to actually look at. Kind of got out and stopped and just kind of explored them a little bit more as far as the historical implications of them. And this was kind of on the back road over here where they were located at. And you can take this drive at a leisurely pace. Obviously, there's not really a need to rush around. But it'll be fascinating to see kind of in the future down the road what the National Park Service does with all this land, this site. There is a lot of land once you get out there. It's a pretty big area, and it's hard to believe that, you know, to over 10,000 people had lived there at one time or another. And they do have well markers. There's a lot of good markers there on the side and everything like that. There's not any paved roads in there. It's all kind of dirt, so I'm sure in the snow or rain or winter, you definitely would want to check the weather before you headed out there. And it's kind of a fascinating water tower right here. Kind of just a turnaround down here. Weather was pretty warm at this point. I think it was probably the high 80s actually. So I want to make sure you get some water and everything like that when you head out there. I definitely would probably not be able to walk this. You definitely need a car to make your way around the grounds. Here's kind of just one of the turnarounds, and there's some more historical information. I think if you have time to do the audio tour, I would highly recommend doing that. And I'll probably plan on visiting sometime maybe down the road in 5 to 10 years and just kind of see how it looks. I'm sure the Park Service will have a lot of fascinating additions as a park in progress. And here's the cemetery area that I talked about. It's got the trees around it. Very peaceful, very somber. You can kind of just slowly pull in there, and then the actual cemetery is around on the other side of the trees over here. And this was kind of the last stop that I made on this, and then after that, headed over to Granada to the museum. I've got pictures of the outside of the museum. It's a little small in there, so I didn't really film or anything like that when I went in there. It's just kind of more, taking it all in, reading. I was probably in there about an hour or so, but definitely recommend stopping at the museum to really get kind of the full understanding of Amache. And there are a few other of these relocation camps that the Park Service has that you can go visit. Eventually I'll get to a few other ones. I'll be kind of see the comparisons and contrast between them. But we are glad to have you on board for this episode, and look forward to seeing you on the next episodes, and hope you enjoyed kind of this tour of southeastern, eastern Colorado National Park units.